All right, Terratucci's here back again. So unfortunately, I'm gonna have to delay today's actual video. It was supposed to be a Nether Spider like kind of cheese guide. Is basically just using your campaign farmer to really go through. I realized that Elhain on one account had War Master and that I used the 20% critical on my Kale on my main account here. So it didn't actually work. And I think this is the biggest thing is the fact that he has this instead. So tomorrow I think I'm going to regem him. Same build, but just change it for War Master. And I think because of War Master and Lifesteal gear that you can recover enough healing to just burn through the Nether Spider. And other than that, like Nether Spider's kind of like a hard boss because you can't use AoEs unless they completely demolish him, like the wave. So we'll go over that tomorrow. But I want to talk about the summon guide because I feel like this is a large trap that a lot of players get stuck into, or maybe just haven't known. And I found this out pretty early after doing one of these 10 times for a ridiculous number and then realizing like I didn't get any, and then people explained to me kind of how this all worked. So let's just go over this quickly before we get into the champions, because I want to talk about champions in kind of an organized manner. And I feel like these 10 times events will always be a good point to talk about the champions as they come up and kind of whether or not my position on them has kind of changed. Now, I haven't really talked about almost any of the champions, so we're just going to start here and go through these. And, you know, if we make a guide of a champion and they're here, it'll just help add information and places for you to find more info about these champions. The problem here, and the title of the video is Do Not Pull, but these champions are awesome. All of them are literally awesome and have a place in the game that can do cool things, but they just, for some reason, you're never gonna pull them in a 10 times event, and that's a problem. So let's talk about that. So first off, your chances are here. If it's not a 2 times combined with a 10 times, your chances of pulling these are so low because you have a 92% chance to pull a rare, which aren't even in the 10 times. And then in the epics, you have an 8% chance. If you manage to pull that section, you then have a 10 times guaranteed, or a 10 times chance to try and get this champion. And really, there are so many champions in the game that your odds are so minimal, you're just not going to get these. I tried for Eurogrim. I pulled 6 epics last weekend getting Godseeker Neri in the guaranteed champion event and didn't get him. So, like, before that, I think I pulled like 110 shards during a 10 times with Overseer Vizier, and I didn't get one of the guarantees at all. I only got the guaranteed. I didn't get any of the 10 times. So let's just go over this. Again, with the legendaries, you have a 0.5% chance on the ancients and a 0.5 on the voids to get these champions. Now, sacreds are really the biggest way to get them, but you only have a 6% chance. And it means you got to pull about 20 shards before you get a legendary, and you're probably not getting a legendary out of those 20. And if it is, it's not going to be these, because I think you have like a 7% chance to pull one of these 2 champions because there are so many legendaries. Or it might be 7% per champion for 14% total, but still 14% of 100% is so low, you're not going to do it. Just save your shards for the champion chase, or for the more important one, the Summoner's Rush, where you need these sacred shards to basically complete that event, to get those shards, to get Operdin, if you plan to pull. And if you don't plan to pull, as we talked about yesterday in Operdin, save your shards for a fragment or a fusion event where you actually want that legendary, and then pull your shards, because you're not getting a lot of sacreds, you're not getting a lot of voids, and you get an okay amount of ancients, but they're not worth anything for these summon rushes. And the summon rushes and champion chase are the main ways that you get a lot of fragments or fusion characters for these events. So just don't pull, guys. We're going to go talk about the champions now, okay? So we're going to go to the index system and we're going to talk about them, and we're going to see where they kind of fit and kind of a little bit about them. So they're all from the Shadowkin, as the Shadow Crypt, faction crypt just opened up. The first one off is Burangiri, who is actually a really awesome champion who has a unique role that he is one of 2 champions that can solo Bommel the Dreadhorn in Doom Tower, and it's because of his passive, and he heals 10% more than the bomb explodes, and an enemy dying counts when a bomb explodes. So he manages to heal through the bombs, and then you just have to keep him alive through Bommel himself and the actual other bombs debuffs on him. So let's go over his full kit, and we'll also talk about the modifiers that I have pulled up thanks to Hell Hades. I don't have these damage ratings otherwise. I'm also not reading the stars or anything else off Hell Hades. These are my own opinions on kind of where this champion is. And I feel like a lot of my insight into these characters may be lacking, and I just want to talk about what I feel about these characters and not necessarily reading off a script of like, oh, Hell Hades has already said he's good for this and this. But I want to have an open discussion with these champions, and if I'm completely dead wrong, change my mind. Talk to me in the comments, say like, no, he's amazing in Ice Golem because of this and this, or he's great here because of that and that. But really, when I read a character and I see something that really stands out, or I've seen this character in Arena, I want to talk about that. Let's go over his kit quickly. So we got Battering Skull. Battering Skull. It is his A1. It attacks 1 enemy. It has a 3.1 defense modifier, which is okay. He has a fairly big defense pool, so he hits okay. And you're probably going to build him with a fair amount of HP and defense and try and get things going with him being a tank. You're also going to want accuracy on him because of some of his other abilities. Like, he has a 20% chance to place the Provoke debuff for 1 turn, and it's boosted up to 40%. It's not 100% reliable, but he lives for so long that you're going to get it off. His A2 is Bakemono Charge. Attacks all enemies, has a 40% chance, booked to 60% to stun debuff for 1 turn, also based on his defense, and it is a 3.5 times defense, so that hits okay. It's not the strongest for an A2 ability that has a 4 turn, booked to 3 turn cooldown. 60% is also high enough that you get enough in a wave in Doom Tower for like semi-reliable stun, but Arena, it's a little bit weak. It only hits maybe 2 on average. You could get lucky, you might not, but think of it as a 2-person stun when booked, or it's really like a 1-person, maybe 2-person if not booked. I feel like his book value is, somewhere worth it, but maybe not the biggest priority on kit changing books, because some champions really do completely change when you start to book them, and they really start to just work in their selected role. His A3 is Frightful Warcry. He places a 25% strengthen buff on all allies for 2 turns. He places a shield buff also on all allies for 2 turns, but only if they have less than 50% HP. And the shield buff is equal to 15% of the target's max HP. So your allies' HP. It'd be nicer if it was off his and he had a huge HP pool, but yeah, it's a helpful ability on 4 turn cooldown, especially since Strengthen is a flat 25% damage reduction. It's not like increasing defense or decreasing defense where it's kind of a weird algorithm. It's just flat off the top, 25% less damage taken, which is awesome. And not many people have a team-wide strengthen buff. I think there's like 8 total champs that have AoE strengthen in the game. And then his passive is heals this champion 50% of the max HP whenever an ally or an enemy dies, which we kind of went over. But in Arena, this dude just keeps on ticking. Like you unless you focus him down first, he just keeps going. Especially if one of your champions dies, he just heals back 50%, and you're kind of in a losing game. Especially when you build him in Immortal gear or the regen gear. He just starts regenning a lot of health and has a ton of health, and he's just really hard to take down. He also has an increased resist in all battles by 40. That's not great leadership, but if you have nothing else, you might as well use it. But usually your characters will have a better all battles aura, so you won't probably use his. But this dude is awesome for Bommel the Dreadhorn because of that bomb thing. And he's good in arena if you get him early on. If you're in late game arena, you're probably not going to use him. I also feel like he'll be pretty strong in Faction Crypt. I feel like he's a great choice for just crowd control, for keeping his team alive, and like the provoke, the stun, and he's just going to keep on ticking through these faction stuff. And I think he'll also make a good boss. Some of the bosses, and I think that's the hardest part, is those bosses are just mean sometimes. And he's also got a really cool kit, like, or a character skin. Like, look at him. He's pretty cool. Pretty basic, like over on the bottom half, but like still really awesome design. So the second champion is Toragi the Frog, who is Toragi. Also, funny looking tall man. He's actually really tall in game from what I've seen. He kind of stands over the other characters. He seems like he is a great clan boss character. And he's also really good in arena with certain other characters, like especially if you get the Calvin Axe. If you're lucky enough to get him last weekend, you can really start to slam in the poison, and pretty awesome. So first off, his A1 attacks one enemy, has a 30%, 41 booked to place a 50% decreased attack but debuff for 2 turns. Is based on HP, and it's 20% of his HP. And that's fairly low in the grand scheme of things. Even though he has a high HP pool, he doesn't hit for that hard. This is where kind of he's really good for clan boss, is he's getting that decreased attack, even if it's a low chance, for 2 turns, and you just continue kind of smacking the boss, keep making sure that decreased attack is going through. His A2 is Poison Stench, attacks all enemies, has a 50% chance of placing Provoke, debuff for 1 turn, and this chance is increased for each debuff on the enemy team. So you might be able to provoke the entire team, especially if you have a Madame Cerise, which he works really well with, because that is 8 buffs, meaning that you get 40%, it goes up to 90 on a 3-turn cooldown with Madame Cerise. And if so, some of the other champions, if you can get a decreased speed, or you can get a weaken in there, or you can get any number of debuffs, even poisons, right? If you get a couple poisons on the team, his provoke chance starts to go really up, and you can really start to control the tide of battle, which is awesome. Same with Doom Tower, same with wave-based combat. The provoke just will really help you. Bog Blessing places a shield buff equal to 15% of this champion's max HP and a 50% ally protection on all allies except for him. And then he also heals this champion by 25% of their max HP and places a 30% reflect damage buff on them for 3 turns. This heal is increased by 2.5% for each poison debuff on the enemy team. So he gets to heal by quite a bit. And he then protects his team. It's really what he does. He poisons and then protects his team, which is kind of an awesome, like, 1-2. A lot of poison champs are really, really offensive, and this guy's defensive, and he just helps keep everyone alive. I forgot to mention, this is also a 20% HP, which is also really weak, especially being, like, a special that attacks all enemies. His passive is Toxic Blood. When attacked, he has a 50% chance of placing a 5% poison debuff on the attacker for 2 turns. Occurs once per hit, which is huge. And you get like Vizier, who I mentioned, or Apothecary, who manages to hit all 3. 50% per hit. And you might get 3 poisons on them. Or if he's, hit twice, there's a good chance you get at least 1 poison, and then you start to do the poison stench. He's kind of like a ghost second arena team, where they go up, Madame Cerise removes all their buffs, decrease attack, decrease defense, slam in the provoke, get the shield and ally protect going, and then just start killing people. I feel like he's pretty useful in Fire Knight with this. And when you place the 30% reflect damage on them, but it's I feel like they're better Fire Knight champions than him, especially since you're kind of relying on that and not necessarily anything else, especially since if you don't book it, it's still on a 3-turn cooldown, which I guess you'd have 100% uptime, but I'm not sure. Fellhound is just so much better, I think, at that. Also, his book value to me seems worth it. Getting this stuff lower, especially this 10% more shield. Remember that it's 10%, so it's like 16.5% and not just flat out 25%. For what I remember, again, please correct me if I'm wrong, if I read the mechanics wrong. But he is also awesome. And then we're going to talk about Genbo, the Void in this 10 times, who is an absolute monster in Arena. I had to face him once, and I just couldn't. I tried like 3 or 4 times with different comps, but he hits pretty hard. He attacks 1 time on his A1, or sorry, he attacks 2 times on his A1, and each hit steals any increased attack buffs. Also, each hit has a 30% chance of stealing 1 random buff. The increased attack buff steal cannot be resisted, which is a really interesting aspect of his kit. You can build him without any accuracy, and his kit still works for what you want it to. You can really just slam in the damage early on, and then when you get into late game, end game, arena, you can put accuracy on him and then get these extra stuff going. So he will work early, mid, and end game, all different accuracy levels, especially with Great Hall giving you so much accuracy. Same with this ability, it does the same thing. We don't necessarily need accuracy, but you attack all enemies, has an 80% chance to decrease the duration of all buffs by 1 turn. This effect cannot be resisted on critical hits, so you want critical, slam in the damage. It books out to 100%, and there's a 3-turn cooldown when booked, which is awesome. That seems like a really good book value, even if it is between 2 extra damage percents. I mean, this books out to 50%, but this guy needs a lot of books if you do decide to book him. Now, Sword Trance, it is a 6-turn cooldown, goes down to 4, places a 30% increase crit rate buff and 30% crit damage buff on the champion for 3 turns, grants an extra turn. So it's basically 2 turns, but he gets an immediate turn after that. And then his passive, he's immune to decreased attack debuffs. He will ignore unkillable buffs when attacking under an increased attack buff. So his kit actually has no way of putting on an increased attack. You can either steal it or have someone who will put it on. And that's kind of the hard part of his kit, is you do need a second character to really make him tick when he's got that increased attack. If you need it. I mean, this is very situational. You might not even need this extra character if they don't have any unkillable. So, but he does also have a 20% increased ally speed, which is better than most. Most are about 19%. The ones like Haikatoon is 19, and Deacon and Gorogab are all 19%. So you just barely get better with your speed tuners if you have him in your lead. He is really cool champion in the arena. Doom Tower, I don't think he'd be great in any of them, like off the top of my head. At least none that I've faced. I don't think he'd be useful. I could be wrong. Might be average, middle of the road, just kind of damage dealer. I don't know all the Doom Tower bosses off the top of my head either, so please feel free to comment if there is a Doom Tower boss where he's just amazing. Now we're going to go on to the legendaries. First one we're going to do is Genzin, who is an interesting champion. He seems like a turn meter train who needs other turn meter trains to really just kind of kick ass. He is pretty good in arena when you can get him going, but you kind of need to have that strike first team. He is also great because he has decreased defense, and I don't think a lot of other champions really have decreased defense in the faction crypt. He is very useful for Fire Knight because of his A1, which is he attacks 1 enemy 3 times. Each hit fills this by 6% turn meter. So he gains 18% turn meter every single time he uses A1, which really gets that Fire Knight ball rolling. And you'll really start to just keep smacking the Fire Knight. He has an AoE on his A2. Oh, sorry. This is a 1.3 times attack, So it's a 3.6 times attack total. He's got a fairly dang high attack speed. So he does quite a bit of damage on the A1 when kind of fully bumped up in damage. His A2 is Steel Parting, attacks all enemies, has a 75% chance of placing a 60% decreased defense debuff for 2 turns. Each critical hit fills his champion's turn by 10% meter. In Arena, 40% turn meter if he gets all criticals, which he probably will. And it books out to 100% decreased defense. And the thing that kind of sucks about this is it's not the reverse. He's not placing a decreased defense first, then smacking, in which when he'd hit really hard. This is only a 3.8 times attack, so it's strong, but not the strongest. If it was the reverse, this would hit a lot harder, and I think he would be a lot better than he kind of is. It's not to say that he's bad. He's good. He needs support to me. He needs a team built around him to really get this turn meter train just keep on going and going and going, rather than just being one really strong nuke like Ray, or getting out these other damage eaters like Trunda. His 8-3 is Fated Vengeance. He attacks one enemy. He will ignore unkillable and shield buffs. He fills his champion turn meter by 30%, 60% instead if the target has 50% or less after the attack. Now, it's a 5.5 times attack, which is fairly strong. So you're kind of just cranking out a big hit, hoping he's less than 50%, and then you get 60%. And that's where this turn meter train kind of goes, is you also decrease the cooldown of Steel Parting and this own skill, Fated Vengeance, by 1 turn if it kills it. So you start him off, you go boom, Steel Parting. If you have it booked, it's already on a 3-turn cooldown. So you're on 3 turns. He takes his next turn because he gets that 40% turn meter, hopefully. And then you got 2 turns left. He does this Fated Vengeance where he kills someone, hopefully. Then it's 1 -1 cooldown, which means it has a 1-turn cooldown left on the ability. And that means that he just needs to take 1 more turn, and then he gets to use Steel Parting. And that's pretty awesome. So you can kind of like get a second Steel Parting out really quickly if you can get a turn meter control kind of in between these abilities and really just keep them going. And then you can use A1 again on that other thing and then just keep cycling through the abilities. His other ability is called Bushido. It's a passive, increases his speed by 10 and resistance by 50 if the champions on this team is equal to or less than the enemy on the enemy team. This effect always works on fighting bosses. So he gets 10 speed in arena and 50 res, as long as you're not fighting an undernumbered team. Like, it's not some stupid like tag team arena where there's only 1 level 60 champion or 1 level 1 champion or something like that. You're just straight up fighting. He gets 10 extra speed and 50 resistance. So he's a pretty cool champion. Kind of needs to be built around, but he hits pretty hard. Again, pretty dang good because you get turn meter rolling with the A1s. Just keep on A1 really on Fire Knight to break the shield and then start doing some of the decreased damage or decreased defense to deal more damage. And then you can gain also 30% turn meter because not likely you're going to do the one attack that does to 50% or less. Oh, sorry. Like, you know what I mean? In the beginning, it'll be 30. In the end, it'll be 60. Sorry. The next champion is phenomenal. It's fairly new. Kyoku. Really cool looking kit. Probably the best champion on this list by far. Not by far, actually. Riho Bonespear is next, but Riho is amazing. But I think this champion is better by a bit. So Kyoku is a defense-based champion. Pretty high defense. Fairly good HP. Has an interesting aura. 30% in all battles. So, decent. A1 is One-Eyed Beast. Attacks one enemy, will place 3 hits instead if the target is under 3 or more debuffs. Each hit has a 40% chance to place a 25% weaken, which is just 25% more damage. Goes up to 50% when booked. And I think her book value is incredibly worth it. Like some of the other stuff as well. Like you'll see, she's really worth booking. She hits pretty dang hard. This is a 1.6. Doesn't hit too hard if it's just one. With 3 hits, it's a 4.8 times defense. Really strong. The A2 is Blood Curdle. Attacks all enemies, and this is kind of funky. Has a 80% chance to place a 50% decreased attack. Increases to 100% when booked. After attacking, has an 80% chance, booked to 100, of placing a HP burn if it did not place the decreased attack. And that's kind of funky because you're almost always going to place the decreased attack unless you have another champion who places it before you with 2 turns or more. If it's a 1-turn decreased attack, she'll override it. But basically what you want is like Madame Cerise to go, places her decreased attack, decreased defense, and then she'll go. She will not override. Then after attacking, she places that HP burn. And then that's where that kind of works. The damage multiplier is 3.3, which is pretty strong because she's got a high pool. And it books out to 100, like I said. So it's kind of funky, but I think if you can set it up, really worth it. Especially since like Madame Cerise is really worth it. Also helps placing this because you're probably going to have 3 or more debuffs because you'll have HP burn, you'll have decreased attack and decreased defense. Then she starts just smacking. We have Kyoku's Horde. Places a 50% ally protection buff on all allies except this champion. She places a block damage buff on this champion for 3 turns, then grants an extra turn. So it's basically 2-turn block damage. It books out to be 4 turns, so there's still 1 turn in between the block damage at the end, but still a really awesome defensive ability. And then she has Wellspring. It's a 6-turn cooldown. Books to 4. Every time this champion's hit with a critical, heal all allies by 15% of their max HP, then places an increased defense buff on all allies for 2 turns. So if you're in a go second team, you remove all their buffs with Cerise, slam that Blood Curdle because you have healed a bit and you place your 60% increased buff on all your allies, and then you're hitting pretty hard with this. She is a pretty cool champion and seems to really work in like everything because she's placing that decreased attack. Almost all the bosses you kind of want her. All the bosses hit hard. If you can reduce their attack damage, you might as well. So if you get her, I would book her. She is a phenomenal champion, needs lots of books, but she has a great defensive kit that really just helps your team do things, even if you don't have this second HP burn part that you're only getting to use her for the decreased attack. She's really worth it. And then Weaken is amazing. Not a lot of champions place Weaken, so she's well worth it. And the final champion is Riho Bonespear, which is phenomenal. She is defensive and offensive at the same time. She is slightly crowd control-y. The Riho Bonespear, with her A1, she attacks one enemy, places a 15% continuous heal buff on the ally with the lowest HP for 1 turn. She also places a 7.5% continuous heal buff on all allies with 30% or less for 1 turn. This also has a 4.3 times attack modifier. She has a decent attack, it's not great, but she hits pretty strong. Her second ability, this is kind of one of the big parts of her kit, is pressure points. She places a stun target enemy. As well, she places an HP burn, 60% decreased defense buff, a 25% weaken debuff, 50% decreased attack debuff, and a 30% decreased crit rate buff for 2 turns. Then attacks the target with a 5.8 attack, which is average because she's low. If she had higher attack, it'd be quite a bit stronger. But like, she just neuters someone just straight out of the gate, just takes everything they love away from them, and that is a fun part of her kit. for disabling the enemy. And then her next ability, the A3, is where she buffs your own ability, like buffs your own team. Perfect body, removes all debuffs from all allies, then places a block debuffs buff on them for 2 turns, heals all allies by 30% of their max HP, and a further 5 for each debuff removed. Huge, huge, huge heal. This goes up, and I think it's like 40% after the thing. So you're at a base of 40 when booked. It's on a 3-turn cooldown when booked, and you're just slapping out a heal every 3 turns. It can be really hard, especially if they have Madame Cerise. Riho goes after Cerise, clears all the buffs, you heal back to full, you block the further debuffs, and then you start slapping. And one of the best parts about her kit, and this is what really makes her work in a lot of the dungeons and is just really fun, is her passive Reflect. When receiving any debuffs, she instantly transfers them from this champion to the attacker. Will not transfer debuffs that cannot be removed. So, gets rid of freeze, gets rid of stun, gets rid of anything. She puts it back on Dragon anytime she gets poisons or weaken, and like she is just awesome. She is seriously a really strong champion anywhere you get her. She's a great support. And if you're managing to get her, like, dang. Get her in a kit, get her somewhere. She's awesome. And that's all the champions in this 10 times. That's how I feel about them. She's, I should also say, like, Riho is amazing in Arena when built properly. She's very useful, does a lot. Like, does a lot for one champion. And in Faction Crypt, I imagine she is just an all-star. So, like, if you get her, you're cranking out bosses. Like literally, like, these 2 abilities, you're smashing through bosses. And then you're just, like, healing everybody up and getting through probably a lot of levels that you probably shouldn't be able to get through. But yeah, that's my opinions. Thank you very much for watching. This has been Terror Two Trees, and hopefully tomorrow you will see my Nether Spider video. If I can get it working and I can get Kale reworked and get that War Master on him, and we'll see how it goes. Anyways, thanks again. And if you have any criticism, I'm still more than up for criticism and advice on how to make my channel better. If you guys do have advice, please let me know. And also, the best way to support me right now is to subscribe to the channel, to like, and to comment down below. It helps me push in the algorithm. Just starting a new channel and trying to get out there is the hardest part. So if you can share my video, like, comment, subscribe, it's free and it helps a lot, way more than you think. Thank you.